thank the organizers for this town hall meeting. This is Democracy in Action. I want to thank the venue. I want to thank all the donors of the PIG and the IPAs, etc. My name is John SAKOWICZ. I've dedicated my campaign to two people. One is my mother, who passed away in late December, Rita SAKOWICZ. You can Google her up. She's from New York and Florida, and she made a life out of challenging the powers that be. Just Google her up, or just go to the YouTube and watch her take on political corruption in the city of Venice, Florida, where the city council was taking payola from developers. I'm not my mother's son. I also have dedicated my campaign to the late Phil Baldwin. Phil was a friend, he was a mentor, and he was a funny guy. Phil's memorial is coming up soon, and I hope all of you attend. I moved to this county 20 years ago. Before that, I lived mainly in New York, but also offshore. I have a 25-year career in the financial services industry. It can be found in my FINRA documents on my personal on my personal website, johnsakowicz.com. I held Series 3 and Series 7 licenses, worked on the floors of the New York Stock Exchange for Spear Leads, and when they were bought out by Goldman Sachs, I took the buyout. Was the Vice President, National Sales Manager of two departments at Dean Witter. I came to this county. I followed a woman who had read that Ukiah, the city of Ukiah, was one of the 10 best cities to live in. She was a young widow, and we landed here. That was 20 years ago. Not having anything to do, I joined the grand jury, and it was a grand jury that was looking into public corruption in law enforcement. I ended up dropping out of the grand jury and personally suing our then District Attorney Norm Vroman for the misappropriation of asset forfeiture funds. He was buying fully automatic Heckler MP5 machine guns with silencers. Those are two FTA violations. If you Google my name in conjunction with Norm Vroman, you'll see a record of that lawsuit. Mr. Vroman died of a heart attack when a federal task force served a warrant upon him. A theory, and it wasn't just my theory, Deputy District Attorney Myron Zawicki provided a lot of the documentary evidence. The theory was that he was arming a private militia, which is just insane. But that's Mendocino County. At that point, I received an invitation from our then Sheriff Tony Craver. He said, if you think it's so easy working in law enforcement, work in law enforcement. And at that time, I was in my 40s, and I said, I'm too old. And he said, I'll apply for the waivers, you're hired. So I took the challenge and ended up working for 4 years, mainly in the county jail, where I burned out, working mainly in Building 2, Wing 4, which is our de facto administrative segregation unit. It's the PUF unit for 5150s. And I worked very closely with the late, great Dr. Doug Rosoff in that capacity. Since that time, I've been a cannabis farmer in several states. Most recently, I'm applying for permits in New Jersey, where I'm working with the coalition of the Black Caucus in Trenton, and also with the coalition of black ministers to make the permits contingent upon concessions for pardons and expungement for all those African American kids whose lives were ruined by the insane war on drugs. I've taken on Flow Canna in a big way. I believe that Flow Canna is sucking wealth out of our county, and I would like to see several major reforms in the cannabis industry. I'd like to see much larger grows. I'd like to see much further setbacks. I would like to see it regulated as ag and not commercial. I would like to see it to be a code enforcement issue and not a law enforcement issue. And I would like to see the county provide some Kickstarter funds in the form of an industrial revenue bond to be in the supply chain business, the same business that Flow Canna is in. Flow Canna is got hundreds of millions of dollars in investment. Some of you have read my article that went viral and that is now in the hands of some producers at HBO, an article called Flocana's deal with the devil, Jason Adler. Mr. Adler is a hedge fund manager who has put $175 million in Flocana, and he has gone on record as saying that his he expects a return on investment of 10 times what his original investment is in anything. He's at Gotham Green Partners. What does that mean? That means that Jason Adler, a top hedge fund guy out of Wall Street, expects to pull $1.75 billion out of Mendocino County. Why isn't that money staying here? And the reason is we need to be in the supply chain business. Our county needs to kickstart a supply chain company, be in a partnership with a farmer's co-op, and bring pounds that sell for $1,000 or less into the market, where if you slap a Willie Nelson label on it or a Snoop Dogg label on it, it sells for $50 or $60 an eighth of an ounce. We need to be in that business. What else do I believe? I think that our mental health services need to be audited. We pay more than $20 million to Redwood Quality Management Group. We could be doing a much better job with providing for our homeless and for the housing crisis residential treatment. I'm calling for an independent financial audit of those contracts, and also a survey of mental health outcomes. I'd like to see reparations and an apology to local Pomo Indians for all the offenses, all the human rights abuses of Native Americans by white settlers more than 100 years ago. And I'd like to see sanctuary city status for all law-abiding immigrants just here to support their families. I thank you for your support, and you can find me on johnsakowicz.org.
Okay, who's got questions? Hold the mic. And Sarah, quick question, Sarah.
Quick question. My name is Sarah Wright. I'm a reporter with KZYX. I've had the pleasure of interviewing a lot of you, including John Sakowicz. At 3 a.m. after I interviewed you, you sent a letter to the ADA and the Mendo Voice and my board of directors threatening legal action and demanding that I be fired. My question is, if you get a little authority around here, do you plan to use it to punish members of the free press for conducting an interview in a way that you don't personally approve of?
Of course not.
It's a yes or no question, John.
Of course, and the answer is no, and I don't agree that this is a member of the free press. This
That's
particular,
a member of the free press. Yeah, this is a member of the free press, babe. Right here.
I believe that she had a clear bias in going into the interview.
Member of the free press. Anybody who's been interviewed
Sarah,
by me,
Sarah.
please raise your hand. We're not.
I love to be interviewed by you.
Let's.
I'm crazy.
John, can you
I'm
answer?
driven out of the valley.
So the answer is no. I respect the rights of the press. I've been married to a member of the press. My second wife was Susan Brink, who was leading a reporter for women's health care at the LA Times, at USA Today, and at the Boston Herald. She's the author of the book, the Fourth Trimester, and the Framingham Heart Study for women with chronic heart disease. So I'm a member of the Free Press. I know I was married to a member of the Free Press, and I know the rules.
Go ahead, go.
Okay. Ross Liberty again. I'm going to ask the same question of everybody. What is your vision for economic development going forward in Mendocino County?
So for those of you who don't know Ross Liberty is Mr. Economic Development. And if he didn't have anything better to do at Factory Pipe, he should be our Economic Development Director.
I'm not good at that stuff.
Ross Liberty is a success story. So first of all, we need a position, a deputy CEO within the executive office, specifically targeted for economic development. That person is right here in our county. He's the department head for building and planning. His name is Brett Schultz. And most of them think is the guy who just issues building permits and cannabis permits, etc. Yeah, let's hear it for Brett. He's he's the right guy to have. But he's also, if you looked at his LinkedIn resume, he's also the, oh, that wasn't anybody cheering for Brett, that was a dog barking. He's also the former redevelopment authority director for the city of Anaheim, and he's brought billions of dollars of deals into that city. I think Brett should be reassigned to a newly created Department of Economic Development in Mendocino County. And I think we should pursue funding that's out there. California has something called the California Bank for Infrastructure and Economic Development. And we could be issuing industrial revenue bonds. We can do all kinds of things. We have a former supervisor here in the audience, Kendall Smith. Thank you for coming, Kendall. Who could probably talk a lot longer about that than I can. But there are a lot of resources in Sacramento that we haven't even begun to tap for cheap money for economic development.
Laura Hamburg. Mr. SAKOWICZ, how many lawsuits have you been involved with, the total? And then can you tell us the last 5 lawsuits, each one, please?
I don't think I've sued anyone anytime recently. Could you be more specific?
How many lawsuits have you done total?
I can't remember the last one, Laura. You'll have to be more specific. I'm not a litigious person. I will complain to the proper authorities about issues, and I will support lawsuits. Right now I'm supporting the complaint that our former Director of Public Health, Barbara Howe, has filed with the county. She was wrongly terminated by the county, by a county CEO that I believe has overstepped her bounds, and I believe that she'll be suing for millions. I'm supporting her lawsuit. I'm doing it on behalf of every worker, every county worker who needs to be protected from wrongful termination. Barbara Howe was the Deputy Director of Public Health in the state of New Mexico. She was recruited to come here, and she was fired basically for passing out portable generators during the P&G rolling blackouts. She should be hired back, and she deserves an apology.
I'm Peggy Agnew.
Hi,
and
Peggy.
My question is about your time on the KZYX board and why you felt it was a wise idea to turn the station into the FCC and cause them much financial trouble, as well as threatening their very existence.
Well, I don't sue, I report, and I let regulatory agencies do what they do. In the case of KZYX, we had a general manager who, again, like I believe our county CEO does, who overstepped his bounds. He fired Christina Anasted, who's now an anchor at KPFA, a very popular Pacific station in Oakland. She's now also a single mom and a friend of mine. At the same time he was doing away with our news department, he gave himself a 20% raise. I just thought it was wrong.
I have a follow-up question to that. Why, in particular, did you think that turning the station into the FCC would be the wisest thing to do as a board member? Wasn't there something else you could have done to remedy that situation?
You know, I wish there were. I'm a practicing Buddhist. I've taught at the City of 10,000 Buddhists, School of Developing Virtue and Instilling Goodness, and nonviolence is my way. All I did was ask the FCC to investigate, and what they found, incidentally, was that the station had filed defective 990s tax returns. They also found that the station wasn't staffed during working hours. So my complaint wasn't completely unjustified. And also, now we have a news department, which we didn't have during previous administrations. Thanks.
So, this is the first time I met you, and this is the first time you met me. So, we have no bias here. But right now, what do you know about Louisiana Pacific Corporation's involvement in the 2017 wildfires that burned down my land?
Wildfire General, feel free to.
Yeah, so I think there needs to be a lot more wildfire readiness in our county. That would include easements and improvements to roads. That includes, I think, sirens in various parts of Potter Valley and Redwood Valley that would give a distant early warning for fires, more water tanks, etc. PG&E needs to be taken to task, but PG&E is a slippery animal.
It was not PG&E's fault, I'm suing them.
Okay.
So, it was Louisiana Pacific Corporation's, and I'm getting rowdy, I'm out of here.
PG&E declares
It's not
back.
their fault, they were used to cover up.
He's out.
PG&E declares bankruptcy on a regular basis, and as you know, they're organized corporately to avoid real liabilities.
And I think that's time, right?